silence, and then we'll go up to the platform.
We'll say good morning this way. Here a little better. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning here. We know it's cold, but as I think back to the day that we're commemorating today, it's probably pretty cold when those boys got sunk down in that ship and stayed down there for a few days. And a lot of times they were probably only in their skivvies when they get something to chow to eat and had no way to get back to get clothing. So for many days they suffered. And whatever I can do, as long as I can, I want to remember what they did. This is Pearl Harbor. At that time, we knew that we had 2,234 killed at Pearl Harbor. That many killed at Pearl Harbor. There was 1,347 that were wounded. I said, as far as the information we can obtain, there was only, the Japanese lost 100 people in that attack. The Pacific War, in the Army we had 38,000 people, in the Navy we had 31,000 people, in the Marines we had 22,000 people, in the Air Force we had 16,000 people for 108,000 people. There were different people that were killed in action. These are killed in action. So it's bad what's happening over there right now. I talked to some of the gentlemen here, some of my friends are telling you, I know that my son is back home again after his 12th trip. I'm glad to have him back in the States. And it's it doesn't matter what war. War is war. And it's like I tell the kids over here at school, if your daddy is a policeman or a sheriff or anything at all in those lines that puts on that uniform in the morning, when he goes out on the street, he's going to war. He has no idea what he's facing when he goes out there. How many people here were alive when it was announced about Pearl Harbor? How many people are alive when we had Pearl Harbor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus, no. No. Okay, I check and see. I didn't want to insult these fellows up here, but I know you could probably in a few moments. I'm going to ask if you'd like to come up and share a story with us. But I know exactly what I was doing when Dad walked out in the front porch and said they just bombed Pearl Harbor. It was a beautiful day, just like today. It was in Pearl Harbor also. But at my home in Pennsylvania, we don't have this kind of weather on December the 7th. But I was out in the yard practicing short sleeves, getting ready for a big basketball game on Tuesday night. So I was out there working and trying to get my show put together. I thought, yes, Dad's talked about Pearl Harbor. I knew the name, but I said, what does that mean? He says, I don't want to talk about it. So we didn't talk about it. He didn't tell me that what was going to happen to me when I went through boot camp. I wish he had have told me, because boot camp was rougher than the war time sometime, I think about it. Because in the boot camp that I went to, I wound up being in a commando company when I went to boot camp. And that was rough. It was very rough. We did not walk anywhere. We didn't walk to chow. We didn't walk to church. We didn't walk to boat practice 3 miles away. We ran. Every place we went, we ran. We waited till everybody was off the street. In my time of being with the Navy, I went in the Navy in 1943. That was a short time after Pearl Harbor was bombed. I remember when we were along the coast of Hawaii out there, and from my history teacher in the 5th grade, I remember her talking about going to Hawaii, and she talked about the beautiful pink hotel, the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. Well, here I am out there several miles off the coast, and way off there I can see that pink hotel and the Loa Tower over there. That was my first look at Hawaii. And later when we went into the area where the ships were sunk, and there were ships still sunk, they were still, and some of them still resting on the bottom when we got there. And the oil in the water was so slick that I could write my name in the oil and it would stay there for a few seconds. That's how thick the oil was on the water from all the ships that were sunk there. The ships that we saw then basically would be the Arizona. That was the main one that blew up. And the Japanese did not lose that many people there. But from there, my cruise took off, and then I spent the next almost 2.5 years traveling from one island to the other. When I left Pearl Harbor, we headed out. We got down into Guam. We went several places before we got to Guam. But Inouye was my first landing, my first battle. Kwajalein was my second battle. And Guam, If you can imagine a reef about the length of a football field, that's what I walked on for 24 hours, bringing supplies in from the edge of the coral reef into the beach, because the landing craft could not go in there loaded. And today, I'm paying for it. My feet, you'll notice me most all the time, I have white socks on because I have quite a bit of times getting infection from any type of color in my feet. But that was my really worst experience was at Guam. I did land on Guam. Then from there, my next experience was Okinawa, and that come near being my last, because I can remember getting out and putting smoke around the ship. The captain had me get out and put smoke pots around the ship so we'd be hidden. But when I got back on board the ship, we were the only ones that had smoke around us. Nobody else had made it. And I thought, well, there's supposed to be kamikazes coming in. Well, it wasn't too long that all of our smoke had blown away, and sure enough, out of that perfect blue sky comes a kamikaze. And what does he do but peel off and head right straight for our ship. And I got a tap on the helmet, get ready to load. He said, load. Now, I'm a first loader on a 3-inch. The 3 inches is probably about 30 inches long, and I had to shove those into the breech. And I shoved one shell in, and you don't look back to get the next one, you just reach and get it and shove it in. Before I could get my hand away from the breech, it had fired. It came up and it fired. I got the next one in, it fired. The next one fired. And then I got tapped on the helmet to stop loading. He's turned off. What happened, whether we hit him or not, made him veer off to the side, but he did go off to the stern of our ship and exploded in the rigging in the battleship that was at our stern. So we thank the good Lord for the good angels for being with us that day. But we did have one dive at us. We know what it's like, the fear of watching one come in. And the only other thing that I can think about was really bad when I was in the service about being on that ship. If you can picture a ship that's almost the length of 2 football fields, almost the length, almost 600 feet long. And that ship, when we got in a typhoon, we had swells, and I thought what we estimated they were 70 foot high. From the Navy records I found out they were 90 foot high. Now if you can imagine that ship sitting up on the crest of one of those waves and looking down into a valley, and you drop off. Now you're sitting up on that wave on the top of it, the screws are going around in the air back there, the whole ship is vibrating, and you're up on the bridge and you're looking down into a valley, and you take off and it's like on a roller coaster. Down you go. And you go, oh, are we ever going to come up? And we go down, and the bow of the ship, 40 feet above water, it goes under and comes back up again. And the main deck, the gun turrets and everything, they were completely washed with the waves coming over the top of it. We lost lifeboats, we lost a lot of stuff that was on the ship that was even tied down and still was torn loose. But that was called, some people refer to it as Halsey's Typhoon. All I think about it is a typhoon in the Pacific.